Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Biddy. How are you this morning? You gonna stomp on over? She's probably gonna stay just out of frame, but she is headed this direction. Nice sunny March morning here. It sounds like there's sun in a lot of places. Um, I'm gonna start the morning by saying happy birthday to my dad. Um, yeah, I won't say his age. I think that's kind of rude, but I don't know. Maybe that's rude. But yeah, it's my dad's birthday, so happy birthday. Um, I think I'm gonna mix up, here's Biddy. I'm gonna mix up our routine a little bit and start on the floor. So we're gonna play with some of the same movements of moving the pelvis around, but we're just gonna shift the order a little and then take it up to some of the chair work later. So I am gonna use my chair, my stool, and I am gonna use my strap, and I am going to start on my hands and knees. So let's move it to that position. Hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips. And then just see if you can create some awareness in your sitting bones. Now, I'm going to assume everybody knows what that is, but I'm not going to assume that. I'm going to also tell you what it is, right? There's this bone called the ischial tuberosity. It's the base of your pelvis. You have one on either side. If you have a lot of flesh on your butt, if you have a nice gluteus maximus muscle, then it's a little harder to feel. If you're like me and you have like a flat nothing butt, it's very easy to feel your sits bone. So either way though, you can find it, right? Reach around and feel that very bony prominence there. And just bring a little awareness to that part of your body, all the way down at the base of your torso. And then think of moving the pelvis from those bones, right? So instead of your hip bones, which we often think about in moving the pelvis, we're going to think of the sits bones moving. So the sits bones move towards the ceiling, which makes my hip bones move towards the floor. And then the sits bones move towards the floor, or I might think of them moving down towards my knees. And that makes the hip bones go up a little, right? So that opposition between those two. So thinking from all the way down at the sits bones, creating a little bit of movement, and then tracing back down. So if I had a little crayon or pencil or something attached to my two sits bones, right, I'd be drawing an arc behind me as the sits bones go down and up. Now that affects the rest of my spine. My spine is arching and rounding, but I really am just thinking about moving my sits bones and my pelvis, and then I'm just letting my spine respond to it. And then on the other side of that, as the hip bones are moving up and down, there's also a change in the hip joint, right? And we talked about this the past couple of weeks, like opening the front of the hip or finding a deep fold, a deep crease in the front of the hip. And that's happening back and forth as my sits bones make this movement. All right, now let's shift a little bit to sitting. And sitting on the floor with your feet out in front of you, however is comfortable. I'm going to flex my feet a little. Um, But feeling that same thing now sitting, so rolling, and you feel yourself roll off the sits bone, right? So my sits bones are towards my heels more, and that rolls me back to where I'm not really sitting on my sits bones anymore. And then rolling up on top of my sits bones. It's pretty much the exact same movement we just did. You can see my spine responds as my sits bones roll towards my heels, and my spine gets rounder, and this hip crease opens up a little bit. And then as I roll to my sits bones, to the top of my sits bones, my spine gets a little straighter. I get the deep crease in the front of the hip. My feet move a little bit. Whatever's comfortable is fine for you. So you work through that movement a little bit. Sometimes you get a little like almost like a tendon rolls over the sits bone as you sit up. It's not really a problem. It's slightly uncomfortable, but um, that happens sometimes. All right, let's do one more where we roll all the way down to your back. So from your sits bones, the sits bones move towards your heels. That rounds your spine. And you roll back to your back. And then let's take a couple breaths on your back here, letting everything relax. So between my two sits bones, my two sitting bones, is my tailbone. My tailbone is more in line with my spine. It's more central. So we've been talking about kind of finding awareness in the sits bones. And then take a little awareness to the space in between the two sits bones. And maybe a little deeper in, might feel a little deeper into the body. The tailbone in general has a little bit of a curl into the body. And maybe a little closer to your waist than the sits bones. The sits bones are a little closer to your feet, and the tailbone is probably a little closer to your waist, like a little bit higher feeling. See if you can put some awareness there. And once you find awareness of that space, with whatever clarity that is, it might just be awareness of the space of the tailbone. You might have a very clear image of the coccyx bones and the sacrum. You might have sensation there, whatever it is. Once you find just some awareness in that area, just like kind of let it sigh, let it relax, let it release, which doesn't create an external movement. There's nothing that happens when you do that. You just like let the tailbone have ease, like it could exhale. All right, let's try a couple knee folds with all that information. This nice sighing tailbone, really relaxed. One knee folds in, comes back down. And the other knee folds in. Tailbone keeps sighing. And sits bones stay just where they are. They're not going to tuck or arch. They're not going to make the movement that we were making before. They just stay in place. If I bring my knee very, very close, that won't be true. My tailbone will lift up a little and my sits bone will curl a little bit. Not a bad movement, but not what we're doing right now, right? We're going to try to keep that in place and only take the leg as high as the tailbone can keep relaxing and the sits bone can stay where it is. Now, next time one leg comes up, let's leave it there. Take a moment and just kind of check in with all those things. Have your shin in a place where it seems about parallel to the floor. And then a little bit of extra abdominal support to get the second leg off. And into that same position, knees together, shins in that tabletop position. Sits bones just neutral, just where they are. And then tailbone just has a little bit of sigh to it. Let's take your arms to the ceiling. And then your choice, head down or up, as we set up for the 100. And we'll pump. Inhale. Exhale. Breathe in 5. Exhale. Now, still with some awareness with the base of your pelvis, sits bones, tailbone, and whatever that means to you. There's no specific thing you have to do. Maybe you think about the breath moving through that space. Maybe you just let it stay in your attention. 5 more. Again, head up or head down. 5 more. Two more times. 5 pumps to inhale, 5 to exhale. Last one. And bring it all back down. Let's take your left leg straight out on the floor. Now, as your left leg goes straight out on the floor, what does your sits bone and tailbone feel like? It's just different, right? Just like a different kind of awareness when that leg goes straight out. Part of that has to do with the fact that once your leg is straight out, your hamstring isn't pulling on that sits bone anymore, right? When your knee's bent, your hamstring is kind of pulling on that sits bone. Now it's straight, and that's not happening. And the flesh of your body is kind of surrounding that a little differently. But really nothing else changed in the pelvis, right? Just a difference in awareness. Now, right leg comes in, it's more like a 100 feeling. Maybe you have a little more awareness of where that sits bone is, how the tailbone releases. Nice, easy folding and unfolding in your knee. Inhale up, exhale down. Next time the leg goes up, we're going to keep it there. Now, one kind of traditional um, anatomical image is to think of how your sits bone and your heel have relationship. And so both feet for a moment flexed, the foot on the floor and the foot towards the ceiling. And especially with the leg on the floor, maybe thinking of a line from your sits bone all the way to your heel and back up to your sits bone again. That back line of the body, being in touch with that. Now, because the top leg isn't straight, it's a little different feeling, but you still could think of it. The heel and the sits bone have like this kind of imaginary line connection. Hands come away. Now, if you want to play with a flexed foot in your single leg circle, you could, or you could point the toes again and keep some of that same awareness as we single leg circle. Inhale across to the left and exhale around and up. Inhale, exhale around. Maybe you do a little sigh with your tailbone. Take the reverse. Inhale, open. Exhale across and up. 3 more. Still a sense of reach out through the left heel. Hold it up at the top. Slowly bend your knee. Extend your right leg out. And for a moment, feel like you were standing with your legs together. Both heels are reaching. Imaginary, energetic line from your sits bone to your heel on both feet. And then folding your left leg in, folding the back of your leg. Nice, just kind of easeful, neutral position of the sits bone. Inhale, the leg goes up. Exhale, it bends. And again, the more I straighten my leg, the more my hamstring gets a tug. My hamstring originates on my sits bone, kind of wants to tug my sits bone up as I get straighter and straighter. So just let my sits bone be where it is. See where my leg goes. If it starts to pull my pelvis up, then I stop. Next time the leg goes up, a little flex in your left heel. What's it like to feel your sits bone and your heel? And then either with a flexed foot or pointed toes, some leg circles. Inhale over to the right, exhale, round and up. What do you observe in your body with all those images? What do you want to focus on for these next few leg circles? Reverse your direction. 2 more. Take that leg down. Again, let's go to legs together like you were standing up with your legs together for a moment. Just feel what that's like. Your tailbone centered between your 2 feet, your sits bones and your heels have relationship. Just a sense of that lower body connection. And then as you're ready, finding a way up to sitting, however you like. All right, so let's take this into some sitting and standing, see what it's like. Grab your chair or go to your chair. So I'll often say it's nice to have a hard surface, like I have this stool with a wooden top, right? It's nice to have that because it gives you feedback on your sits bones. That's one of the reasons that's very nice, is that as my sits bones push into the stool pushes back up into my sits bones. That creates a proprioceptive awareness. It creates some feedback. It gives me a way to kind of orient myself and feel that. And if I'm in a softer thing, right, my sits bones drop into the cushion and the cushion just keeps giving. And it doesn't give me any like feedback that way. So it's one of the reasons it's kind of nice to be on a harder surface to give you a little more awareness there. All right, so heels now. Sometimes I talk about the heels dropping down, right? We've gone through releasing the ankles to find the heels. So here we are, heels are dropping, ankles are released. Hips have a nice deep fold, and our sits bones are right on the chair. Now, can we take some awareness through the spine, right? It's not a doing, there's nothing to do really. I just feel this nice grounded position and then let my spine just kind of float up. From there, let's do a little side to side turn of the head, let the neck release. From there, let's do a little side to side of the rib cage, let that move. I'm not moving my pelvis. I've grounded my heels in my sits bones. And I'm just kind of rotating through my spine. And then back to center. All right, I'm going to draw my heels in just a little more. If I go too far, my heels are going to end up kind of coming up a little. I want to feel my heels grounded. But if I'm too far forward, it's going to be hard to stand up. So I want to find that place where my heels can really be back, but they can still be in the mat, in the ground. I'm going to fold forward. It's like my tail goes back and my sits bones go back. I come to my feet, and then I find heel to sits bone relationship as I come up to standing. Heels drop down. Sits bones are finding the chair. They're reaching back. My body, my spine responds. And I come back where I started. Fold, heels, sits bones. Then sits bone, heel, connect through the back line of the body. Heels, sits bones. It's nice, right? It's very nice, I think. Helpful for me, hopefully for you as well. Now, you don't have to go all the way to the stool every time if that is not what your knees want you to do or not what your hips want you to do. Just a little down and up without sitting is just fine. And then slowly just keep finding the range. Maybe it's a little bit. Maybe you get to here and suddenly your knees tighten up and you feel your heels coming out of the floor. Just stay here. Release the heels, release the knees. Find a little more sits bone movement and then come back up. It's great to do. I do that as well. Even though I have a pretty good range, I don't always use the whole range because sometimes there's places I'm skipping over that I want to explore. And one more time, down and up. All the way up. All right, let's see what's going on with the strap. We'll take the chair away. So either a towel or a strap, holding out just a little wider than your shoulders. Now, hopefully, we have a really nice standing position. Heel to sits bone relationship. Tailbone isn't pulling under, isn't tipped back, right? Tailbone, just sigh. Really no external movement that goes along with it. You just think like, oh, there's my tailbone space. It just gets to relax, right? Inhale, pulling out, and exhale. Inhale, pulling out, and exhale. And reach, and release, and pull, and release. And inhale, and exhale, and pull, and release. And inhale, exhale, inhale, and release. All right, now every time we do bending the knees, we have kind of these two different options that we do. We have what we just did, where you send your sits bones back as you drop your heels. You'll always go lower if you do that. We have this other version where we say sits bone heel relationship stays constant, right? Sits bones go down, heels go down, spine stays upright. You're never going to go as far if you do that. It's fine. That's what we're going to do now with the strap, right? So we go bend and reach, and bend and reach. And there's a nice like tension, kind of imaginary string with the heels to sits bone that gets a little looser, a little tighter as I straighten, and lower. Reach and bend and up. One more time. And stay and release. Inhale and exhale. And pull and release. Nice wide shoulder blades. Sink the ribs. Once I'm here for a while, I feel my tailbone wants to start tucking and tightening, and I'm just going to let it go. Bend. Right heel comes up and lower. Whichever heel, up and lower. Inhale, exhale, reach, lower, and up, and exhale. Bending, sits bones drop straight down. Tail keeps just relaxing. Keep the arms overhead, both heels down. Inhale, exhale, and reach, and release, and pull, and exhale. Inhale, release, pull, exhale, and release. Two more. Pull out and stay, and little bend. Now we go the full balance as you go shoulder blades together, shoulder blades apart, and inhale, and exhale, and up, and bend, and reach, and lower, up, push, lower, one more each side, and reach, and all the way down. We're going to do the same thing in Pilates V now, just straight through. Everything's the same, just your feet are turned out. And we go. Inhale and exhale, and pull, release, and inhale, exhale, and pull, and exhale, and pull, and release. Relax the tail, and pull, and release. One more time. Pull, sits bones straight down, and shoulder height, and lower, and up, and lower, and reach, and lower, and up. Exhale. up and bend and up and release and pull and exhale. Ribs connected. So for me, as I exhale my tailbone and let my sits bones just kind of neutrally sink, now I have to pay attention to my ribs. What's the relationship between those two things? It's a little subtle. And pull out and bend. One heel comes up, both heels. And up. Ground both heels. And push. And ankles release. And tailbone exhales. One more time. Up with the arms, leave them there. Both heels grounded. And pull and exhale. And relax your tail. Relax your sits bones. Sink your ribs. Drop your heels. Pull and exhale and pull and exhale. Two more. Pull out and bend. Little balance. Up and down. Push and down. And reach. Lower. And ground your heel. And lower. And inhale. Exhale. Reach. And lower. And reach. And lower. Last one. And exhale. All the way down. And relax. Move your shoulders around a little bit. And just like feel what your hips feel like, right? Like maybe do a little sort of kick, reach. What's that feel like? A little bit forward feeling. What's that feel like, right? Just kind of notice how the hips are moving. It's nice to like lube them up, get them moving a little bit more with all that imagery. All right, Scott Anderson, he's looking ready to go. So I'm going to pass it off to him. Well, I said he was looking ready to go, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time.
Sometimes, it's been pointed out, I'm not the fastest at transitioning. So let's begin in standing, feet about hip width apart. Let your arms hang and slightly deepen your breathing. Little bit longer duration out breath, little bit deeper volume in breath. And the point here is not to do some sort of exaggerated deep breathing, but rather to get the rib cage moving. Letting your ribs expand with the in-breath, and let your rib cage drop with the out-breath. Breathing just deeply enough that you feel your rib cage moving. Now, getting a little bit more specific, guide the in-breath into your back ribs. Inhale into your back. And maybe you're already feeling with the inhale how the back ribs lift and broaden. And then with the out breath, how the rib cage drops down. Not too much. A little goes a long way. So now let's add some movement to this. Step your feet wide apart. From your hip sockets, turn both legs out. You've done a couple different versions of squats. Exhale, bend this version where your torso comes forward. And then inhale, come up. Exhale, bend. Inhale up. Now maybe you already noticed as you go down how the sitting bones tend to go a little bit apart. And as you come up, they draw back to the starting point. Not because you have to force it or make it happen. It just happens. Couple more. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And turn both feet back to the front. Now turn your left foot in and your right foot out. Exhale, bend. Inhale, straight. This time, keep your torso straight up and down. Do you feel as the knee bends how your pelvis tends to tip that direction? So see if you can maintain the central channel of your body, vertical. The next time that front knee in the bent position, let's pause there. Then to work the muscles that support healthy arches. Bent leg heel, lift that heel up. And then slowly over a count of 5, descend that heel down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, contact. Then tip your hips just a little bit. A little bit goes a long way. And then sweep your upper arm forward and through. And take a little peek at your ceiling. And then come on up. Back to the front. Second side, right foot in, left foot out. Take a moment here to verticalize your torso. Keep that verticality as you bend. And as you straighten, keep your torso straight up and down, even if you doubt that verticalize is a word or verticality is a word. I'm not sure either. What do you think, Biddy? Couple more. Feel how torso tends to tip toward the bent knee? It's because of particular mobility issues in the hips. So see if you can keep that vertical axis both as you bend and as you straighten. The next time that knee in the bent position, let's pause there. There are a lot of deep muscles in the calf that help support the arches of the feet. So to help access those deep arch support muscles, lift your heel up. Then slowly over a count of 5, descend that heel down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, contact. Now, take your torso from the verticalized to a slight angle, a diagonal. Then sweep that upper arm forward and through. And check out your ceiling. Come on up. Turn back to the front and step your feet together. So now let's turn our attention to the fronts of the hips. And we're going to do so a little bit more zestily than we have in prior weeks. Begin with your hands on your hips. And then take your left foot and step it a medium distance back. Keep that back heel lifted up off the floor. Keep both feet pointing straight ahead, straight forward. Then with the exhale, bend your front knee. And with the inhale, straighten, bend, straighten. Now it's only the front knee that bends. See if you can keep the back knee more or less straight as you come down and as you come back up. In addition to keeping the back leg straight, keep the lift in your pelvis, especially the front of your pelvic bowl. And next time, that front knee in the bent position, pause there. So right below your navel, lift there up toward the ceiling. Check in with your back knee, straighten it if it's bent. Let's take a few breaths right here. And then back to standing. Two sides feel the same. So if not, what is the difference, left side to right side? This is a mindfulness practice to check in and simply ask the question. Now let's take a look at the other side. Hands on your hips. Left foot, a medium step back. Back heel lifted, both feet pointing straight ahead, forward in front of you. Exhale, bend your front knee. Inhale, straighten it. Bend and straighten. So there's definitely an exercise where the back knee bends. It's a good exercise, but it's not what we're doing right now. See if you can keep that back knee more or less straight. Now, it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. And as you go up and down, keep that lift in the front of your pelvic bowl. The next time the front knee in the bent position, pause there. Bring your mind below your navel and then lift that place up toward the ceiling. Few breaths here. And then back to standing. I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm standing taller. Because tightness in the fronts of the hip tend to pull head and shoulders forward. And creating length or openness in the fronts of the hips tends to support standing taller. So let's take a moment here, continuing to lift the front of your pelvis up toward the ceiling. Hold your head up high. Whether you're 8 years old or 80 years old, and shoulders up, a little bit back, a little bit down. To create a sense of openness or space across your collarbones. All right, so now we're going to make our way to the floor with some sun salutation. Begin with the out breath. Inhale, arms to the side up. And then exhale, roll your spine down. Inhale, crown your head forward. Folding again, exhale. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, arms down. All right, we're going to do the same thing again. I have a sense that a few of you move your arms from your arms, which means that you moved your arms from your neck. So bring awareness to your lower belly and imagine that your arms are going to lift up and out of your lower belly. Inhale, lift up and out of your lower belly. And then exhale, fold. Your head is connected to your belly, Inhale, stretch the crown of your head forward, out of your lower belly. Exhale, fold. Inhale all the way up, lifting up and out of your lower abdomen. Exhale, arms down. Now let's do the same thing together quietly with that same focus of reaching, lifting out of your lower abdomen. Now, same thing when add a step to that, add a layer. Exhale, let your ribs drop. Inhale into your back ribs as you take your arms up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, extend from between your shoulder blades. Same place where the inhale goes. And then step your feet back, yoga pose, head down dog. Now, if you recall that imagery, sitting bones in heels, lightly lift your sitting bones up toward the ceiling. Not too much. And then that gentle lift of your sitting bones up toward the ceiling, accompanied by lightly descending your heels down to the floor. Sitting bones slightly up, heels slightly down. Few more breaths here. And then coming down to your knees, all the way down to seated on the floor. So let's begin with knees bent, feet upon the floor. Root your sitting bones down to lift up through the crown of your head. Then take your left foot forward. Bring your right foot in a little bit closer. That knee right there, give it a hug. Left arm, right arm behind. Hand that's behind, have your fingertips face forward toward your screen. And keeping that arm internally rotated, draw that shoulder back. And turn. Back in toward the front, back to starting point. Sitting bones down, crown of the head up. And now right foot forward. Left foot a little bit closer in. Give that knee a hug. It'll be now your right arm. And then the left arm. Have your fingertips point forward toward your screen. Open up your chest as you turn. And then back in toward the middle. First side again. Left foot forward, right foot in. If there's no pinch in your groin, go ahead and bring that foot up and over. Same sort of hug. Same focus in the back arm. Fingertips point forward. Shoulder back. And turn. Back in toward the middle. Second side. and back in toward the middle. Both legs stretched out in front. So mainly a mobilization of the spine. Let your chin drop toward your chest. Let your upper back round. Let your lower back round. Hands maybe come to your knees, maybe to your shins, maybe even toward your toes. And breathe. And then roll on up. Now something very similar. Take your feet apart. Then same trajectory. Start with chin to chest. Maybe you can feel how that opens the back of your neck. Let that opening continue down between your shoulder blades as you create thoracic flexion. And continue to descend down, including your lower back. Hands maybe to your knees, maybe to your shins, maybe to your feet. And breathe. And then slowly roll up. Sitting bones down to lift up through the crown of your head. And from that lift elevation of your head, let your tailbone drop down. Remember way back at the beginning of session, that discussion of the tailbone? Let your tail drop out of your skull. As you now move your skull away from your tailbone to fold forward. And then roll your spine up. And join the soles of your feet together. Hands either catching your feet or hands behind, your choice. Many people tend to prefer one to the other. And rather than thinking about taking your knees to the floor, think about taking your knees away from each other. Left knee to the left, right knee to the right. Shoulder slightly back. And then holding here for a count of 5, 4, keep breathing. 3, 2, 1. Bring your knees on up. Stretch your legs forward. Lengthen your spine. Tailbone drops out of skull. Skull moves forward and over away from tailbone. And come on up. And set up and sitting. So maybe the stool. Maybe a cushion. So whether stool, floor, cushion, park a lounger, whatever it may be. Remember that imagery of the two sitting bones going down? And that creates the lift up. Many of us, it's like the skull and the neck are glued to each other. Let the rooting down through your sitting bones create a sense of buoyancy in your skull. And with that sense that your skull is lightly perched atop your neck, let your tailbone hang out of your skull. Slightly deepen the in-breath to expand your back ribs. And slightly elongate the out-breath. Inhale into your back ribs. Lengthen the out breath. Lengthening the out breath is the most calming form of breathing that there is. On the campus of the University of Wisconsin, almost every week I'm invited to deliver a talk on mindfulness, and they almost always ask me to talk about deep breathing. And I think I disappoint a lot of audiences because I say, if you want to calm your mind and de-stress, don't do deep breathing. Just take your exhale and slightly lengthen it. That breathing is calming. Today we were deepening the in-breath mainly to get the good effect in opening up the rib cage. But in terms of de-stressing, taking the edge off anxiety, focus on the exhale. So let's take the last few moments here together. Let your inhale be natural, normal duration, normal depth, and slightly lengthen the duration of the out breath. What we're doing right now together is harnessing neurophysiology by spending more time in the exhale phase. We have a greater parasympathetic outflow. That's the branch of the autonomic nervous system that's about healing. It's about growth and regeneration. It's about being more at ease. All right. But time flies. Always kind of surprises me just how quickly our time together flies by. And we do this every Saturday. Before we part for the day, any comments, any questions that came in through the chat? If you do have any comments or questions, you know how to reach us, and I'm hoping that you're getting a chance to join us each week. And please do share with your friends, with your neighbors, friends, relatives, strangers. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.